You go through life thinking it's your thoughts that betray you, your fears, your doubts, your emotions. But what if the real danger isn't what's inside you? It's where you place yourself. You scroll through your phone in that same room, walk into that same building, talk to those same people, and slowly, without realizing it, your energy begins to vanish. You start to forget who you are, not because you're weak, but because some places are. Carl Jung believed that the human psyche is influenced not only by our internal world, but also by the external environments we inhabit. It's not just what lies within us that shapes who we are, it's also the surroundings we move through each day, whether visible or invisible. Some environments have the subtle power to erode your mental and emotional well-being. They don't strike with force or drama, but instead work quietly in the background. At first, you might not even realize the change, but gradually your thoughts begin to alter. Your once strong confidence starts to diminish. The light in your soul begins to fade. Jung's insight reminds us to be deeply aware of the spaces and energies we allow into our lives, because the psyche, though resilient, is not immune to what surrounds it. In this journey, we'll uncover 7 dangerous places Carl Jung said you must avoid, not to escape life, but to protect your mental strength inside it. Because some places don't just hurt you, they change you. But how do you even begin to recognize these places before they do the damage? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, spent his life studying the hidden forces that shape our minds. He wasn't interested in quick fixes or surface-level solutions. He dug into the soul, the unconscious, the shadow, the archetypes that govern human behavior without us realizing. And one of his most haunting realizations was that we become deeply influenced by the environments we dwell in, often more than we realize. Now take a moment to reflect on your daily life. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt a sense of heaviness, as if the very air was pressing down on your chest? Or perhaps you've had a conversation that left you feeling smaller, quieter, and unsure of yourself, without any clear reason why. These experiences aren't always about the people involved. Sometimes it's about the energy a place holds, the psychological atmosphere, the emotional residue left behind. Certain environments carry more than just decor or noise. They hold an invisible weight that can deeply affect your state of mind. Jung believed that these spaces are not empty. They are imprinted with unconscious patterns, fields of emotion, trauma, and unresolved energy. And when you step into these psychological fields, they don't just stay there. They begin to influence you, slowly and subtly reshaping your inner world. Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That truth extends beyond your personal mind. It includes the unconscious influence of the environments you move through every single day. This isn't just about avoiding dangerous streets or dark alleys. The places we're about to explore are psychological landscapes, some real, some symbolic, all powerful. They affect how you think, how you feel, and whether you can remain mentally strong in the face of life's chaos. Let's begin with the first one you might already be standing in. Number 1, the echo chamber. This is the place where every voice around you sounds like your own, where your opinions, beliefs, fears, even your flaws, are mirrored back to you again and again until they feel like truth. You might think you're thinking for yourself, but are you? Or are you just repeating what you've always heard? Carl Jung warned about the dangers of collective thinking, the kind that drowns out individual reflection. He believed that true strength of mind comes from confrontation with the self, not comfort in sameness, but the echo chamber makes that confrontation nearly impossible. It gives you the illusion of certainty while quietly robbing you of growth. Consider your social media feed for a moment. The accounts you follow, the content you consume, the conversations you engage with. Are these experiences challenging your thinking, pushing you to grow, or are they simply reaffirming what you already believe? In an echo chamber, any form of difference is treated as a threat. Dissent is avoided, and curiosity slowly fades away. The mind, instead of expanding, begins to harden. And with that rigidity comes fragility, because anything unfamiliar or opposing becomes intimidating, even terrifying. Carl Jung viewed this as a kind of spiritual stagnation. It's a psychological space where growth halts, not because the potential isn't there, but because the psyche is never allowed to stretch beyond its comfort zone. It's not just limited to the digital world either. This stagnation can exist in real life, in your circle of friends, in a classroom, or even at a family gathering, where only certain opinions are welcomed and others are silently shut out. At first, these environments might feel safe, but safe doesn't always mean healthy. True psychological and spiritual health often requires discomfort, challenge, and the courage to face what lies beyond the familiar. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you truly listened to something that made you uncomfortable and sat with it? Mental strength isn't about always being right. It's about being willing to be wrong and growing from it. The echo chamber silences that growth. It traps you in a loop of your own voice. And if you stay too long, you start to forget how to think in any other way. And once you've forgotten how to think in new ways, you're left vulnerable to the next place. One that looks like ambition, but feels like despair. Sign 2. The comparison arena. This is the space where your worth is measured by how you stack up against everyone else, where every glance becomes a silent competition, where someone else's success automatically feels like your failure. And no matter how much you achieve, it never feels like enough. Carl Jung once said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents." But there's another burden we carry today, one that's often invisible yet deeply impactful. The weight of the unlived lives we constantly compare ourselves to. These are the lives we scroll past every day, carefully curated and often far from real. In the realm of comparison, you're not just observing others from a distance. You're absorbing their choices, their timelines, their polished highlight reels. Each image, each post, becomes a subtle message about what success, happiness, or love is supposed to look like. And over time, without realizing it, you begin to reshape your own life, not in a way that brings genuine fulfillment, but in a desperate attempt to keep up. It stops being about what truly matters to you and starts feeling like survival, like you're running a race you never agreed to be in. This silent influence can be just as heavy as any parental expectation. It's not always loud, but it's constant. And if we're not mindful, we begin living a life edited by comparison, rather than one created from within. Have you ever achieved something you were proud of only to feel empty because someone else did it louder, bigger, faster? This place weakens your mind by shifting your focus outward. Instead of becoming more of yourself, you become less of others. You compare your depth to their surface, your real time to their best moments. Jung emphasized the importance of individuation, the process of becoming uniquely you. But in this arena, individuation is crushed under the pressure to conform, to keep up, to win in a game that was never yours to play. And the most dangerous part? The more you compare, the more disconnected you become from what you actually want. You lose sight of your values, your inner compass, your joy. So ask yourself this: is the life you're chasing even yours, or did you borrow it from someone else in the arena? Mental strength isn't found by winning comparisons. It's found by stepping out of the ring entirely. True clarity begins the moment you step out of the arena, when you stop battling for validation through comparison. But that clarity doesn't always last. because soon you may find yourself in a different space. Sign 3. The Masked Circle. This is the space where everyone wears a version of themselves that looks acceptable, likable, polished. A place where appearances matter more than authenticity, where being real feels risky and vulnerability is a foreign language. Carl Jung spoke often about the persona, the social mask we wear to adapt to the expectations of others. He didn't say it was evil, but he warned that if you forget you're wearing it, you risk becoming it. Think about the environments where you feel the need to shrink parts of yourself, where you laugh at things that don't feel funny, agree with, ideas you don't believe. Stay silent when something inside you screams to speak. That's the masked circle. It could be your workplace, a friendship group, even a relationship where love is conditional on who you pretend to be. At first, it seems harmless. You convince yourself that pretending is simply more convenient, that it's just the path of least resistance. But with time, the mask begins to solidify, and the longer you wear it, the more disconnected you become from your authentic self. Eventually, you stop asking the deeper questions like who you truly are, because even the thought of uncovering that truth feels unsafe. Carl Jung believed that real mental strength comes through integration, by acknowledging and embracing your shadow, your flaws, and the hidden parts of yourself. But in environments built on performance, anything that disrupts the image is quickly buried, pushed deeper into the shadows where it can't be seen or healed. Have you ever walked away from a group of people and felt exhausted? Not because they drained you, but because you had to keep performing. Wearing the mask too long doesn't just hide you, it isolates you from others and from yourself. And here's the quiet tragedy. The more you blend in, the more you disappear. And sometimes that disappearance doesn't start out in the world. It begins at home. Sign 4. The Silent Home. This is the place where love is assumed but never spoken, where feelings are buried beneath routine, where conversations hover at the surface, and silence becomes the unspoken rule. To the outside world, it might look stable, even peaceful, but inside, it's a quiet erosion, a place where emotional needs are unmet, unexpressed, and eventually unfelt. Carl Jung believed that the emotional patterns we experience early in life form the foundation of our psyche. If those patterns are built in silence, in emotional absence, the result is not strength but suppression. And suppressed emotion doesn't disappear. It simply festers, waiting for a moment of weakness to break through. Have you ever existed in a space where expressing your true feelings wasn't safe, where being vulnerable only led to being dismissed, misunderstood, or ignored? In places like that, you learn to keep everything inside. You force a smile through the pain, choosing to cope rather than connect. Over time, that coping becomes part of who you are. But coping is not the same as healing, and silence is not the same as peace. In a home filled with silence, you become an expert at pretending. Everything is okay. Yet beneath that calm surface, your mind is constantly at war, trying to balance what you truly feel with what you're allowed to show. That inner conflict slowly erodes your sense of self, because it's nearly impossible to develop true mental strength when you've never had the safety to be emotionally honest. Jung taught that healing begins with expression, with turning toward your inner world, not away from it. But in this place, expression is seen as weakness. Vulnerability becomes taboo, and little by little, the silence outside becomes the silence within. So ask yourself, when was the last time you felt truly heard without having to raise your voice? Now, imagine the opposite. Imagine being in a place so loud, externally or internally, that you can't even hear yourself think. That's the next place, and it's far more common than you think. Sign 5. The Chaotic Space. This is the environment of constant stimulation, a space where endless noise takes the place of real meaning. Distractions accumulate so rapidly and relentlessly that you eventually forget what stillness even feels like. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." But how can you truly look inward when you're being pulled in 100 directions at once? This overstimulation isn't always tied to a physical place. It can be mental or emotional. A lifestyle crammed with to-do lists, non-stop obligations, and a steady stream of background noise. In this kind of life, your inner voice doesn't disappear. It gets drowned out. You move quickly. You reply instantly. You stay busy, not because it brings clarity, but because slowing down feels uncomfortable, even dangerous. Why? Because in silence the truth begins to speak, and many of us fear what it might say. Have you ever filled your day with things to do, not because they mattered, but because you couldn't stand to be alone with your thoughts? In the chaotic space, stillness becomes threatening. Rest feels like laziness. Reflection feels like a waste of time, but the mind isn't built to sprint endlessly. It needs rhythm, moments to absorb, digest, and realign. When that rhythm is broken, so is your clarity. And this chaos doesn't just exhaust you, it fragments you. You become scattered, unfocused, irritable. You start to mistake movement for progress and noise for relevance. Jung believed that meaning is found in depth, not speed, but the chaotic space convinces you otherwise. It seduces you with urgency, then leaves you empty. So the question is, if the noise suddenly stopped, would you recognize the sound of your own soul? Or would it be unfamiliar, like a stranger you once knew? That's where the next space begins to form, not in the world around you, but deep within yourself. And perhaps it's the most deceptive place of all. Sign 6. The abandoned self. This isn't a room you walk into. It's the space created when you stop listening to your own needs, your own instincts, your own truth. You abandon yourself, not all at once, but gradually. One compromise here, one ignored feeling there, until what remains is a life that no longer reflects who you are. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious contains the parts of ourselves we reject, suppress, or fear. When we push these parts away, they don't vanish. They resurface in forms like anxiety, self-sabotage, and even physical illness. Have you ever said yes when every part of you wanted to say no? Stayed stuck in a place, a job, or a relationship that drained your spirit simply because facing the unknown felt too difficult? This inner place demands just that. Comfort over courage, numbness over truth. It trains you to conform so completely to the expectations around you that you lose touch with your own inner compass. And the hardest truth? Most people don't even realize they're trapped here. They call it responsibility. They call it growing up. But true growth isn't growth if it costs you your soul. Jung spoke often about the process of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are. But you can't begin that journey if you've silenced the voice inside that tells you where to go. So pause and ask yourself, when was the last time you truly checked in? Not with the world, but with you. Are you still in there? Or have you left pieces of yourself behind in exchange for belonging? Because the longer you stay in the place of self-abandonment, the harder it becomes to find your way back. But even when you begin that return, there's one final place that can still trap you, one that exists behind closed mental doors you've never dared to open. Sign 7. The Forbidden Room. This is the space where your past lives, the one filled with repressed memories, unresolved pain, buried emotions, things you've locked away because they were too heavy, too shameful, too much. Carl Jung believed that every person carries a shadow, the hidden unconscious parts of ourselves we refuse to face. But what we refuse to face doesn't just sit quietly in the dark, it grows. It influences our behavior, our relationships, even our identity. Have you ever overreacted to something small and then wondered, where did that come from? Or found yourself repeating patterns you swore you'd never fall into again? That's the forbidden room at work, the place you never visit, yet it shapes everything you do. And here's the truth Jung knew well: whatever you bury will eventually come looking for you. The pain you silence becomes the pain you pass on. And avoidance doesn't erase the past. It only gives it more power. So many people live their entire lives tiptoeing around this room, afraid that if they open the door, they won't be able to handle what's inside. But the longer you avoid it, the more power it has over you. The shadows you deny become the chains you wear. Jung taught that real strength comes from integration, bringing those hidden parts of yourself into the light, one truth at a time. This process isn't meant to break you, but to make you whole. So, ask yourself, which door have you been unwilling to open within your own mind? And more importantly, what part of your healing is still waiting patiently behind it? Now that you've seen these 7 places, some external, some buried deep within, you might realize you've been living in more than one of them. Maybe you've walked through the echo chamber trying to find your voice. Maybe you've sat quietly in the silent home, longing to be understood. Or maybe you've locked yourself away in the forbidden room, hoping no one would notice the pain still, breathing in the corners. But here's what Carl Jung understood so deeply: healing doesn't begin with perfection. It begins with awareness. And awareness starts with naming what was once hidden. You don't have to withdraw from the world to safeguard your mind. What you do need is to be more deliberate about where you invest your energy, about the spaces you step into, the vibes you accept, and the parts of yourself you're still hesitant to face. Being mentally strong isn't about having everything perfectly in order. It's about having the courage to let go of what drains you, even when that place feels familiar and comfortable. So, I want you to reflect. Which of these spaces have you lingered in for too long? And what would it take for you to finally walk away? Let me know in the comments. Your story might be the one that helps someone else finally recognize their own. If this resonated with you, don't forget to share it. And remember, your strength isn't built in comfort. It's forged in the choices you make.